So thanks for the invitation to talk today, Phil. Thanks to everyone who's joined us so far. So I'm Andy Ward. I'm a co-founder and director at XBim Limited, and we're specialists in OpenBIM technologies. In a previous life, I was technical co-founder and CTO of Viewpoint for Projects, who were on this morning, I believe, with Ronan Collins. And you may have seen some of their services earlier. Can everyone see my screen okay? You should be seeing my PowerPoint deck. I'll take that as a yes. So
I see the first, yeah, I see your PowerPoint. Fine, yeah.
Thank you, Phil. So what is XBim about? I mean, our mission really is to democratize the use of building information from design to operate through open standards. Really simple. And today I'd like to talk to you about an open solution, software solution that's been available for free over the last decade. This technology has impacted some of the biggest construction and real estate projects around the world, empowering literally thousands of organizations, from startups to small consultancies to global corporations, to deliver the benefits of OpenBIM functionality into thousands of projects across the globe. I suspect many of you may not have heard of it. The software we're talking about is XBim Toolkit and its new cloud service sibling, XBim Flex. So as well as covering how XBim came to be and how it's used, and demystifying some of the mystique of OpenBIM, open standards, open source, open data, what I'm hoping to do is explain to you briefly is, how some recent innovations at XBim mean your organization can benefit from literally hundreds of years of effort that have gone into these technologies. So you can figuratively stand on the shoulders of giants, so your business can then quickly incorporate OpenBIM-based processes into your projects and systems without needing the levels of investment and software development expertise you might expect. And I will touch on briefly our roadmap and what we're doing in the future. And for those perhaps interested in the direction of travel, I'm going to talk around our work with infrastructure and asset management projects. So the XBim Toolkit, what is it? I mean, the XBim Toolkit is an open source set of software components used by developers and coders to read and write and visualize and exchange BIM data using OpenBIM formats, particularly IFC, COBie, and BCF. And IFC, if you're not familiar with it, is an ISO open standard used for exchanging and storing BIM data. Think of it as the PDF or the HTML for BIM. So XBim Toolkit gives full access to the whole data model in BIM files, in IFC files, and it enables developers to work with the invaluable information that's stuck in those files in terms of geometry and in terms of data. And as a toolkit, it's ideally suited to software developers using Microsoft technologies and cloud technologies, which are quite prevalent, of course, in our industry. It also, as well as being a software toolkit, includes some software tools used directly by end users out there. It includes a free BIM viewer and so on that is used around the world. Later, I'm going to introduce XBim Flex, which is our new cloud native platform powered by the toolkit, which transforms how you can rapidly integrate BIM into your services. And so this kind of visualizes some of the things that we do with XBim. We take data from proprietary sources, convert it into open formats through the toolkit, which turns it into data in 3D. And Flex is a cloud platform that we're introducing that essentially lets you access BIM data from a cloud open standard set of Viewpoint using Open API. And I know I'm using a lot of jargon here, but I'll come to that in a second. So just to give you a bit of history, we have been around for quite a while. It's worth a recap, for at least a decade or so, that the toolkit has been available, and it's worth understanding how it came to be open source. So back in 2007, my XBim co-founder Steve Lockley first created some software to manage and visualize BIM models. And he later went on and joined Northumbria University and went on to embed that into industry through a series of R&D collaborations and joint ventures with software vendors, engineers, BIM specialists, BIM standards bodies, while in his role as professor of BIM. And I was one of those parties back in Viewpoint back in 2010 time. So over a series of projects, some of them kind of government sponsored, some of them industry sponsored, the toolkit developed into a really broad set of features, was made available freely for download by lots of other software firms. And we open sourced it because we knew it's a complex beast to manage, and it's an open standard. So we really wanted others to help us with the effort of managing it. In 2017, we founded XBim Limited to better support the ecosystem of users commercially, and started developing a cloud BIM-based platform on that toolkit. I wanted to sort of a quick aside here. I've mentioned the word open quite a lot, and I wanted to pause at this point to help clarify some of the terms and concepts, because I know there's often a lot of confusion over terms such as open source, open standards, and open data. So what does it all mean in practice, and what's the benefits? So I thought I'd start with clarifying what these terms mean and why they're somewhat different. So open standards, really a mature and publicly published standard governed by a collaborative, transparent process, and an organization such as ISO or IETF, who give implementers free rein essentially and say royalty-free, you can go and implement this standard. Now that's a very general thing for processes. It could be hardware, it could be things like DVDs or the web itself. When it comes to open formats, it's more specific. It's an open standard for electronic files, so that you can store and exchange digital data according to a published specification without being encumbered by copyrights and so on. So open source, the next one, is really just a type of software or digital asset license that grants the users to study, change, distribute that software or digital asset. It's really a public recipe. How is this thing built? And open source doesn't necessarily mean open format. It just means the code and recipe is available. Open data is a much bigger thing, really around data that's freely available to everyone to use as they wish without restrictions, copyright, and generally for the public good. It's typically government data, academic data, and so on. And lastly, of the opens, I've got here Open API. So Open API, a publicly available application programming interface, and we've heard this term already today a few times. It provides developers access to proprietary and open software services over the internet using a standard means of accessing that data. So software products that adhere to Open API can generally be adopted very quickly using a choice of technologies. It doesn't lock you into one or another. Oh, and lastly, OpenBIM is really we use it as something of a marketing term, encompassing the use of OpenBIM formats and BIM standards. So I've put some examples along the bottom here where these are industry equivalents to some of the more generic concepts here, which will hopefully put it into some context. If you look, then go and look at, say, the XBim, for XBim, this is something of a segue, I guess, but XBim is an open source software implementation of the BIM open formats, helping your organization work with open standards such as 19650. And then Flex is which I'll introduce in a bit, an open API cloud platform for working with open BIM data. Useful aside, I hope. And the reason that's important is, at XBim, we're really vocal supporters of using open standards for your organization's data where possible. And we think it's in the best interest of your organization, your clients, your supply chain, and ultimately the citizens and occupants of the facilities you build, refurbish, and operate. By exchanging building data in open formats, you help collaboration, interoperability in the supply chain. And for the ultimate clients and occupants of that building, they get the data they need to work with for the long term without vendor lock-in. So let's look at who uses XBim today. It's used across the world, everywhere apart from Antarctica. And BIM's obviously global, and that's reflected in our user base. If we go and look at some of the particular organizations that use it today, this is probably 5% of them. There's a range of organizations in the AEC software industry, from the industry leaders to the Contech, PropTech startups, and they cover a whole range of specialisms. And we have some great relationships with these developers, and we occasionally get to hear about their customer implementations and how they're using our software to solve real world problems. I've got permission to talk about one of those clients next. So this is Bylaw. This is Bylaw is a joint venture between Bouygues and Lang O'Rourke, who engaged in one of the largest projects in Europe today, Hinkley Point C. It's the first new nuclear reactor to be built in the UK in a generation. Bylaw's digital team have been using XBim, which is playing an important part on the information management workflows on this £2 billion Bylaw contract. Some of the stats on this project are kind of mind-boggling. So 20 billion total budget, it's 230,000 tons of steel going in there, 2 million cubic meters of concrete, and at peak there's 5,000 people on site there and 50 cranes, including Big Carl, which is the world's biggest crane, most powerful crane. So with those numbers come some significant data management challenges, not least with BIM. And the Bylaw team are employing XBim as a component of that project. So they're using it to internally to develop custom IFC tools, bringing all the data that comes in open formats to automate processes and convert it to forms that are usable to them. They're using it to read and extract data coming from supply chain, enriching models, standardizing models, and linking in with external data. They're also using it to analyze geometry and restructuring models so that they can work with in design and operate more effectively. And the bottom line is they use it to improve safety, quality, time, and cost, in their words, in that order. And they love it. So it's a great, but by law is a special organization, it's a special project. Clearly the tech team are exceptional. And, not everyone has those super skills or those super budgets. So one of the challenges we see with foundational software like XBim Toolkit, it's quite easy to create a basic application, but you need a lot of expertise to build a scalable industrial strength software service. And that's where Flex comes in. In fact, pretty much every software service we see, BIM service we see, it's like an iceberg. You have this valuable, innovative use case, but there's a huge amount of hidden costs and effort underpinning it. So your magic goes at the top, but there's an awful lot of dark stuff below the surface on that iceberg, whether it be security and processing models and workflows and storage and so on. So as well as all those gnarly features, this is where XBim comes in. XBim is just a hidden cost normally. XBim comms comes in and solves that whole stack here, which is normally a developer's problem. So if I come back to that, we as well as those kind of gnarly features, we really give you high-level use case value. So we can do a portfolio-level reporting, change management across time, taking BIM from design into operation and allowing a writable asset model for the future. So lots of our partners use XBim in lots of different ways. They use it using the toolkit and Flex for the visual side, for BIM collaboration, for data quality management, asset lifecycle management, specialist engineering and costing and estimating, and, across the gamut into client-operated CDUs and the like. So where are we going with this? At the minute, we have launched Flex platform. Key thing we're trying to do is extend the use of OpenBIM into infrastructure through support for ISC 4.3, both in the toolkit and in the Flex platform. That opens up BIM to linear assets, infrastructure projects who've been poorly served, frankly, by OpenBIM standards. And yes, we're opening up BIM to infrastructure, and we're working on a collaborative project with our partner Circular Ecology to build BIM-based workflow systems to automate much of the repetitive, error-prone and manual activities involved with a BIM project. Well, the particular aim of that is so that designers can optimize embodied carbon impacts of their designs early in the life cycle of a project. Lastly, we are working on business intelligence and how do we aggregate and build, add context to other data elsewhere in your organization through the use of BIM. We've got 15 minutes. I'm really trying to wrap up quickly here. We're holding, if you want to know more, we've got two workshops early in January, 19th to 20th. We'd love to have you there. There's a link there if you can go and join. And if you want to contact me, there's some contact details on the screen right now.